I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast, the podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellows Corey and Finn, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @intwreckpod. You'll soon be able to find us on Instagram and TikTok under a handle of the same name. We'll have that information in the show notes. And today, we actually have a guest with us. We've got Mr. Silver Thunder himself, Nate. We welcome out here to the show. He is somebody who works within the NASCAR community on multiple different levels, and I don't want to take the spotlight here on trying to talk for him on some of the things that he does for the racing community, so I'm going to pass it along to him. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nate?
Man, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. Some of you guys have known for a long time. Some of you guys I'm recently meeting, but excited to be here. As far as working in NASCAR, it's pretty crazy. Growing up a race fan, being able to work inside the industry, and support my family and be at the racetrack all at the same time and write it all off on my taxes is pretty awesome. So, I own a company called Matrix Apparel and Sportswear, and basically what we are is we're a full menu provider of uniforms and custom apparel for sports teams, organizations, corporations. And one of the things that we do is I do the sublimated pit crew uniforms for pit crews at the three levels on the national touring circuit in NASCAR. So trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. We've worked all three levels. We're primarily focused on expanding into the Cup level right now, but we have done work with some Cup teams. And most of our current clientele within the three national touring levels is at the Xfinity series level, which is pretty cool. And it's a really it's a pretty cool experience to be able to see that side of the business as a race fan, but it's also really cool to be involved in the business aspects of NASCAR because it is a very business heavy sport. So it's definitely been a great experience, and looking forward to continuing it for years to come.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And
Awesome,
from what
man.
I understand, you do some streaming as well. Is that correct, over on Twitch?
I dabble a bit.
A little bit there, right?
Yeah. We're about 2 years into the stupidest hobby that I could have ever come up with. As a lifelong gamer, it was something that kind of developed sort of naturally, I guess. When the world shut down during COVID, we were bored, and me and my buddies wanted something to do, so we started doing stuff just like this, right? Putting a camera in front of us with a fast internet connection, getting a couple of cold beers, and going live and see what happens. And it led from just general non-topical nonsense to shows about NASCAR, to running fantasy NASCAR pools, to talking about the NFL, to talking about country music, and talk all the things that Finn loves. And the biggest thing that came out of it was we started a weekly NFL series during the 2020 season, and we went live every single week during the week, much like kind of you guys do the weekly podcast here at Intentional Rec. And we went live every single week, and we picked the NFL games, talked about the stories, did all that stuff, and we went live every week all the way through the Super Bowl. Had fun, did it again the next year, and we're actually bringing that back. We took a year off. We're bringing it back starting tomorrow night, Tuesday, on Twitch, on my Twitch channel, and excited to do that. But that kind of content is how we started doing stuff. And then when football season was over, I got bored, and I was sitting there playing Fortnite one night with my buddies, and I was like, I've got all this equipment. Why am I not streaming this? People watch me drink beer and listen to country music. They'll watch me play video games and be bad and throw my controllers around the room. And so one thing led to another, and Silver Thunder went from being a crazy guy who drinks beer on Facebook to a international celebrity gaming superstar. So the rest is history.
Jesus.
Very nice. Well put.
And the paths crossed here on a night where I didn't want to stream myself. Kind of got bored. I was doing some stuff on the computer, and I was like, I'm going to pull up a baseball stream right now and find somebody that I don't know streaming. And I'm scrolling through the MLB The Show, Twitch feed and I see Pop Punk Wednesdays, and I mean, obviously, me and Corey here. Corey is the bass player of Fourth and One. So obviously, I was like, all right, cool. And I pop in, and it was like you had about 30, 40 folks in there just chilling, doing your thing, listening to some really good laid back pop punk. And I was like, this is great. I'm gonna request one of our songs. I'm not gonna say it's us. I just want him to just like live react. If he just like plays this game and ignores the song the whole time, cool. And I requested it, and halfway through, and he's like, "Oh, this is a really good song, dude. Thanks for the thing." And I was just like, "Well, I'm glad you like it. It was me." And he like
we got more.
Stopped his show. He stopped everything he was doing, and was like, and his entire chat was like, "We want the whole discography." And it was really welcoming. Nate as a person is a very welcoming person. Made me feel really good about that in our music, and he really connected. Nate himself is a drummer, piano player, singer extraordinaire, on top of being a 3-time at this rate.
Spot the lie. Spot the lie. 2 truths and a lie, but that's fine.
2 truths and a lie. Wait, are you not a drummer? Or are you just a piano player? I feel like you were a drummer.
I'm not a singer, man. You
are a singer. If you go to Silver Thunder,
sir.
guys, he is a singer. So, so to introduce you to my friends, Nate. Well, and the funny part, my favorite thing about that is then he gets rated by some random Warzone streamer with like 1,000 people, and then it was just like overwhelmed. Like it was like nice, and then you ever watch a streamer have to deal with 1,000 people at one time? It's hilarious because it's so overwhelming for somebody like us to deal with that many people at one time. So it was just a crazy night of just like new friends, all this dope stuff.
Yeah.
I look at his sub badge, I'm like, is that the NASCAR logo? And boom, clicked off. He's like, here's my Chase Elliott helmet in the background, and it was a good time.
For,
So Nate,
for legal reasons, it's not the NASCAR logo. It's a thing that I did in Microsoft Paint.
yeah, okay, whatever.
It's blue and yellow and red. It's a
right.
75 on it.
Right? Imagine. If I ever have someone hit 75 months subscribed, that's gonna be the badge. 75. 30 days, you'll get that one.
Jesus. So yeah, Nate, let me introduce you to my friends here up in, actually, I don't know what you see, but for everybody on the stream or on YouTube, top right above Nate is Corey. Corey is our newer NASCAR fan. I introduced him after we met in the band, took him to Richmond a couple years ago, and the first time by, I saw the video, he just is going, holy shit, as they come by, to take the green. And it's one of my favorite things in NASCAR. I don't know about how it is for you, Nate, when you introduce new people to the sport, but my favorite thing is just watching their face the first time they whip by at full speed. Yeah. It's life-changing. And it was, at least within Corey's sports fanship. Because for once, he thought he was going to find a sport where he can find somebody who would have success and a chance for championship. But that has not gone well. We'll talk about that.
I have my Washington Wizards gear on today.
But at my request, Corey has taken on fanship for the 14 of Chase Briscoe. So we'll get your thoughts a little bit later around Stuart Haas. But I felt like it was a great guy for a young fan getting into the sport. Find yourself a young up-and-coming driver, but not somebody where you're going to get the bandwagon every 2 seconds, right? So that is Corey.
It's been really fun so far.
Yeah,
watching him do really bad.
Also, the irony of that is he started rooting for him right after he got his first win. So that was just
right.
And we've seen how that's gone since. But
and has not seen a win since. But we have seen some fun stuff. And for what it's worth, I said again, we'll get to this one because I want to hear Nate's thoughts on it for sure. That's what we brought Nate in here. He's a Skip Bayless of NASCAR Twitter, whatever that means.
100%. I will own that with a badge of honor.
And then above me, who leads this podcast off with the best radio voice in NASCAR, is my man Jeff Page. Didn't mean to drop the whole government on there, but whatever. Look him up in the yellow books, whatever you old people do.
Text me at social while you're at it.
Right. Jeff is our residential Denny Hamlin fan. Tried and true Toyota boy, has been following the sport for a while, but if I'm not mistaken,
the Camry guys.
That was also your first race ever.
In attendance, that was my first race ever. I had been watching for I had been considered a casual NASCAR fan for years at the time. I started rooting for Denny and watching Denny back when I was in college, ages and ages ago. But I was more of a watch the crown jewels, catch Daytona at the beginning. watch through playoffs type of deal. And then probably over the last, like, I'd say it was right around COVID when NASCAR was one of the first sports back. Like when they came back, it was watch that race, and I really haven't missed. I think I've missed maybe 2 or 3 races since in the 2020 season. It just became an every single Sunday type of deal. So
now, obviously, Denny is well into his potential first championship ever. I mean, he's red hot. But outside of a Denny championship, I think that Jeff experienced. Not only did Corey experience that one day in Richmond, like this intro to this new sport that just going to take him over, Jeff had maybe the best sports experience he could possibly ever have live, short of like being a part of the 11 crew. Nate, obviously, I don't know if you remember, this was 2 years ago, I think. It was the first. You guys went to the first
Spring of
next
22.
gen.
Spring of 22, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so spring of 22. This was Denny Hamlin is running down, and I think did he pass Truex or he passed the 20? He passed somebody late on tires.
he passed about 10 people. So
He passed about 10 people, right? Well,
Everybody.
First of all, these two are hammered, and Denny has got new tires, and he is passing everybody. And you ever been to Richmond, Nate? They're bleacher seats, okay? I don't know what they're doing in Virginia, but they got bleacher seats. And the entire way around the turn, right in front of Jeff, felt every time Denny passed somebody, because drunk Jeff is slapping the back of the bleacher seat, screaming, "Let's go! Let's go!" at full fucking throttle, right? I heard him over the cars. And
it would have been like this if I was sober too.
And dude, it is so
excited.
like he is screaming, and he passes, and he's just hooting and hollering, cheering, like all throughout the cool down lap, all throughout the stuff. It was so loud and obnoxious that somebody from NASCAR in the stands was like, "Hey, can I get a picture for the NASCAR social media of you with your hands up?" So he does this stupid fucking pose, and he's getting a picture. And then they go, "Hey, do you want to meet Denny in Victory Lane?" And he said, yes. So they walk his ass down, him and Corey go to Victory Lane. All right. He's stumbling down the Jimmy Johnson tunnel, because that's what it's called for Richmond. Just want to point that on there. Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion.
There's Jimmy Johnson reference number 1.
So I have a reputation to throw Jimmy in there, living in the past. So, so he gets to, and he goes on, he gets to go up on the stage, and he bumps into a guy, but not just a guy, but Joe Gibbs. Just walks right by Coach Gibbs, like, "Oh, hey, sorry, Coach." Like, and he's a Commanders fan, so he gets to accidentally stumble past Joe Gibbs, stand next to Denny, and what does he do? Does he put an arm around him and hit him with a peace sign or cheers or shot? No. He's fucking VA. It's the funniest fucking photo. I'll send it to you.
We're in Richmond, man. Got to go 2 up, 2 down. That's how you do it.
I don't think it gets any better. I said in the tunnel, I said, we might as well put him down at this point. It doesn't get any better than this.
No, yeah.
Go out on your high note. So
It only goes one direction from getting your picture taken with your driver in Victory Lane.
yeah.
That's the pinnacle.
So we
If
need
you
to get a photo. What's
If
up?
you would have shoulder checked Coach Gibbs hard enough, they would have put you down without you
That's what I was
asking.
going to say. They had a team on me for that one for sure.
That man is not ready. So, Darlington happened this week. I did get to go to the Xfinity race. I'll keep my breakdown of that short. It was fucking fun. Only the second Xfinity race I've ever seen. The first I've seen from the stands, obviously thanks to you. We got to sit on top of the Alex Labe? I don't know
Labe.
what the
He's
French do.
French-Canadian.
Yeah, the French, they get weird with their double B's. Labe.
Yeah.
Really good road course racer, by the way. But, yep, so we got to hang out on that pit box at Bristol. But no, this one was dope. I will say my first experience of Darlington in 06, I hated it. Again, if you've never been to Darlington, there's a lot of shit in the infield, and it really blocks your view of the backstretch, and it was so banked. You remember in the early 2000s when it was really skinny? It was really only like a lane and a half. You really couldn't see shit, but now I think because it's a little expanded and people are a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to see. So if you're going to Darlington, it's a fun track to go to. It was really good to see Larson out there. Obviously, Denny won the race, but they were Austin Hill racing them down. John Hunter Nemechek trying to get a spot back. Extremely racy, but it was a good race to watch. I'm happy. So if you're ever thinking, should I go see the Xfinity race on Saturday? That arguably better passing and better racing, mainly because them boys are ready to send it.
Yeah.
Well, and the Supers are fire.
And then the Supras. Let's not
These
forget
guys are obsessed with the Supra. They're Korean.
Supers are great.
that.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. That was part of the lost episode, Nate. But do they need to bring the Supra to Cup, or are you okay with the shitty Camry?
I mean, replace them with Kia just across the board.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, I mean, look, Toyota is so insignificant in the general landscape that Dale Jr. doesn't even care to pronounce the name correctly. And if it's not important,
Toyota.
and if it's not important for Dale Jr., it's not important for me. Next question.
And here comes Denny Hammond in the 11 Stingray.
Yo, listen.
Hey.
That's actually a fire idea. I'd never thought about that. But
Well,
the Kia Stingray at the Xfinity Series would be nasty.
Would be next level. All right, we need to get like alternate liveries made, Keep Lambo and Ferrari out, but
make sure we get them.
Hey, remember we already got those box cars from the car tomorrow. What are they? The Scions?
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Yeah.
Jesus, back in the day. So, all right,
driving gerbils or whatever it was in those ads. I remember that. Yeah.
So, first thoughts on the race at Darlington. Was it better than the spring? I don't know if it's the spring or summer race, but the first race during the day. Did we feel it was like racier on that? Because I remember I was pretty bored. And not because Byron won. It was just a race that I felt like nobody could pass. Whereas yesterday, I feel like I saw a lot of passing. What about you guys?
I didn't love it.
No,
I didn't love it. I mean, this was going back to your boy, old Keller, talking about the races are too long. That's kind of the feeling that I got from this. Like 367 laps was a lot. They were driving for 4.5 hours. And the thing that I just can't get out of my head is the view that those guys had going into 3, where like it's 7:45 and the sun's like just barely over the horizon and just blasting them in the face every time they enter 3 for an hour. I was like, yo, they should just wait till 7:45 to start the race and then have it be like 300 laps or something like that. That was just my take. I don't know.
So
but, I mean, it was fine, but it was not like it wasn't as good as Kansas is about to be. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think so the reason why I like the long races, especially the day to night transition races, is because of how much your setup matters in the day and how well you transition that to the night. Does that need to occur over 500 miles? I don't have an issue with it because we really don't have a lot of 500-mile races on the track, on the circuit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really don't. Richmond is
a blueprint for that.
I mean, you look at Richmond, which is a 3. They call it the Toyota whatever. Is it the 400? I think it's almost a 300 race, but it's like laps. It's like 300. Yeah, but they're doing laps now. They're not doing the actual mileage. So, I think Darlington is a great track to transition from day to night in. It's a crown jewel, so it's gonna stay that 500 length.
Yeah, I get that.
Right. I'm a big fan of that because it led to some comers and goers, and it also kind of allows us to eradicate some of the stage nonsense. I always hated that the 600 gets broken into 4 stages. I feel like it should give us that fuel mileage stretch. I mean, one of the things we had here talking about, there was like 3 separate levels of tire, right? There was a part where Harvick, Bowman, I want to say Bubba, and maybe a couple other guys were rolling around with like 8 to 15 lap fresher tires, and that was when Harvick was able to work his way up to the front, and he was obviously everything that happened with Reddick. So I always like that, like making those decisions and split the stage into thirds, or split the stage into 2 stops or 1 stop or whatever you can do depending on the length. I don't know. I really enjoy that. I like to keep those races a little bit longer. That was obviously the big point. I'll ask you, Nate, on your thoughts. If you did catch most of the race, if you know what we're talking about. So just to rehash everybody, the 4 on fresh tires caught the 45 car that was leading. And once you catch somebody, even though he was on equal tires, I think the understanding was that he could try to fight him and pass him. Or if you pit a lap early, the general consensus on the 1.5 miles are that 1 lap of being on fresher tires on the out lap will allow you to leapfrog the leader. So he dives down the pit road. The 45 brakes really, really hard trying to make it. one, Nate, do you think he could have made that even if Ryan Newman wasn't there? Or two, how did you feel about the rule that Harvick had to deal with, the rule break of getting serviced on the closed pit road, and what would you do to fix it if you felt like it needed to be fixed?
I don't know that I would really vote change any of the rule book as it relates to that, because it's, for me, the NASCAR rule book is written in a very broad and general sense. It's not written for specificity, in the sense that, okay, in this situation, did Kevin Harvick receive kind of what seems to be maybe an unfair consequence for his situation? Sure. But again, you start changing the rule book, then you do the domino effect of, okay, well, how does this affect all these other situations? Because for every rule book change that they make, somebody's going to figure out a way to exploit it, right? So you just kind of have to you have to regulate for kind of the majority of situations. So I wouldn't change anything about the rule book. In the case of Reddick situation where he's trying to break for pit road, Ryan Newman's there. That is 100%, very simply put. The difference of Tyler Reddick is still very young and still has a lot to learn when it comes to stock car racing on ovals. I realize he's one of the best drivers today at the highest level of stock car oval racing, but he still has a lot to learn. That's a mistake that a guy like Joey Logano is probably not going to make. A guy like Denny Hamlin's probably not going to make. We see those types of things with these younger guys who are in fast equipment, who are up front, and they're in a position when they're running up front like that, their mistakes are going to have a much wider effect on the field in general than if somebody makes a mistake running, P32 in a Rick Ware car, right? So if the roles were reversed, right, and it's Newman making that mistake to seemingly break check Tyler Reddick, I think it's a different conversation. But I mean, there was some scuttlebutt on Twitter about, was some of it in the way that Reddick did it intentional or gamesmanship or anything like that? And I believe that it wasn't. I believe it was a simple mistake that caught up, a guy like Ryan Newman. I think that Tyler Reddick is a very respectful racer 100% of the time. And especially with a guy like Ryan Newman, you're going to be aware of your surroundings when you're running in the front like that, because your spotter's constantly telling you lap or low, lap or high, things like that. The leader, especially the first couple cars, they're going to know where everybody are. So I think it was strictly just Reddick is young and he's going to make mistakes like that. You're out front in the Southern 500 racing a guy like Kevin Harvick. You've not been on a stage quite that bright in that position before. It's reasonable that you might, make a little bit of an error when there's snap judgment. So I don't think there's going to be anything really falling out from that. I think it's just one of those things where young guys make mistakes and you kind of gotta take the punches and roll with it. I mean, we're certainly not going to hear Ryan Newman complain about it. I mean, he's running 2 laps down in a Rick Ware car, basically doing Rick Ware a favor, right? And what's kind of the back end of a pretty bad situation earlier in the season.
And quintessential Ryan Newman things, right? And being somebody who's right up there, 2 laps down, and making it hard as hell for anybody to get around him at any time.
Yeah, well, he was bumping Reddick before. A couple laps before this, he was giving Reddick a hard time. It allowed Harvick to really catch up. I had made a point. I think it was either you guys or to my brother, but I was like, I wonder if he's going to do the same to Harvick, considering Harvick and him probably have a little bit more respect, having been from the same generation of race car drivers. I wonder if he would have let him. I can't remember. He did finish 27th in that Rick Ware car, which might be the best it's ever finished. So
hold on with the Harvick thing. You told me that they would have frozen the field. Okay.
So I don't
like to hold on. So I don't like to do the bit of I listened to this other thing and now I think this, but that is exactly what happened here. Okay. Right. So I listened to the teardown, Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi after the race. They went through the entire thing, and they were suggesting that there was essentially, once that caution came out, that there was no way that Harvick was going to come back onto the track in 3rd place from where he was, right? He was either going to get a commitment cone violation or a penalty like he got for actually stopping for service, or pass through the pit road. But what they were saying was, if he had passed through pit road, he would have lost positions. They made no speculation that he would have come back out in the same place. So if that is true, I think Harvick got really screwed here.
I think he did. I
that think, to me could change. If a caution comes out, either that or move the commitment line earlier or something, right? Like where it's like he was in a spot where he was completely at the mercy of everybody else on the track. If anyone had been where he was and a caution came out, they're getting a penalty, period. And they did nothing wrong. Like there needs to be some way to account for like that he was just too close. Maybe it's more like a restart zone of like an entry to pit road or something like that. Like I don't like the way that worked out for him.
Yeah, but I want to say this though. Every time that we watch a green flag pit cycle and you see that one dude, normally a Michael McDowell type, who's just like, fuck this, we're not winning this race, let's stay out forever and hope we get a caution after enough tires have passed, or after enough laps have passed that everybody's going to want new tires, but enough to where we don't run out of fuel. This is the kind of situation they're looking for. If you were to go through and look at every single situation that a driver got screwed by a caution that they literally had nothing to do with, William Byron would only have 3 wins, right, from earlier in the season with those late race things. I think Nate talked about like how the vagueness of the rules. I'm with you. That blows for the Ford. But at the end of the day, he made a veteran move, which is when he caught Reddick, instead of trying to sit around and pass him and kill tires or do whatever, he caught Reddick. And there were, if I could go back and I could look, I would wager that he pitted a hair earlier than the 45 car thought. I don't think that the 45 car thought that they were going to pit. I anticipate 100%. That he pit before, but I think Harvick 100%. Said, "Oh, I caught him because of Newman being a hard ass. All right, I'm gonna short pit him really quick." And I bet you the 45, and then we're in the middle of talking. All right, 3, we're expecting to pit 4 to 5. Oh shit, 4's coming. Get down, and the chaos. You mess around with a young driver, and that was a veteran move by Harvick. But as always, when you short pit, you are at the mercy of. Does a caution come out while you're a lap down or something like that? So while I am with you and I wholeheartedly agree that the 4 got screwed, I wonder, I wish NASCAR released it and be like, all right, if he would have stayed pit road speed all the way down, would he have come out in 7th? Okay. Why did they pit and take 2?
That's basically what they were saying.
Right, and 7th is better.
They made the wrong decision, right? The 14 made the wrong decision. However, either way, he was losing positions and probably would have come out somewhere in the high single digits, most likely.
Yeah, but he stopped, took 2 tires, and ended up 30th.
I'm not disputing that I'm not saying they did the right thing. It's just like I just hate it for someone like Harvick, who I've been like, kind of pulling forward by proxy, and it just to see that go that way after he was running him down. Like Harvick was on his way to winning that race. Yeah, and just got completely screwed.
So the big thing that we've got to pay attention here to, like kind of like what Finn was saying, is I think it's incredibly safe for all of us to say that yes, there are scenarios created by certain rules in NASCAR that are questionable, right? The flip side, right, is if we revert to a black and white, hard, fast, it is what it is type of scenario, like iRacing, for example, right? Rules are enforced by a computer, which only understands the inputs, right? So there are times where people will be involved in a wreck and end up sliding through pit road, and they get a black flag for driving too fast down pit road. Well, obviously, in the real sport of NASCAR, if you're on pit road because you were avoiding a wreck, they're not going to black flag you for a pit road violation. But it's really kind of either or. It's you give the ability for some flexibility with the understanding that sometimes people get the short end of the stick, or you go to a hard and fast rule that, in my opinion, would create more scenarios of seemingly unfair because it removes the judgment. Wayne Auten is the race director for NASCAR. He's been doing that for, I want to say, close to 10 years in that role. And he has a very difficult job. He's a very scary person on race day because he has the stress of the entire sport on his shoulders, because ultimately the buck stops with him, right? So all of the NASCAR officials, all of the scores, everybody reports in real time to Wayne. And so in a situation like what we saw with the 4 at Darlington, that's something that's going to go to Wayne's desk. There are a lot of things that they've got a team of scorers and different people that do things, and they say, Wayne, sign off on this. Check, go, fast. It's a very quick process. It has to be. It's in real time. This is something that's crucial enough where that's going to be something where they bring Wayne the info. They bring him the telemetry, the data. They'll run 2 or 3 extra caution laps to give him time to look it over and decide what to do. And ultimately he went with, this is what the rule book says. This is how it reads. Right. Unfortunately, this is what we're enforcing. That's why whenever whenever the media team gets word of a potential penalty, it's generally a lap or two under caution before they actually can report to the fans watching at home, this is what happened. This is the penalty. Then their video team's going back and then they'll find what footage of it they have. And you saw something similar with the 4. It wasn't immediate that we knew exactly what was going on there. But then once we, obviously once we know, it's one of those things where there's not a perfect solution, right? So Wayne's got to make a decision when you leave it up to human judgment. If you take it out of his hands and leave it up to telemetry, maybe that would have worked in Kevin Harvick's favor this time, but there's going to be 3 or 4 other times. I mean, you guys do iRacing as well. Anybody that's done any amount of iRacing, especially in leagues, I mean, how many times are league admins overturning black flags? Because it's like, well, that black flag doesn't make a lick of sense, right?
Right.
So you got to kind of figure out, which one of those 2 directions you really want to go. And it's a tough job. Like I said, I have never personally had a conversation directly with Wayne on purpose. Passed him numerous times. I know exactly who he is when I see him, but I want no part of that guy on race day because he's just like a ball of intensity, man. And it's a tough job. It's a tough job. So I think, credit to him where it's due. He does a great job. And we talk about things like this so infrequently for how often we probably would if, like, for example, Angel Hernandez was in the box making decisions, right?
He said the name and it's like,
everybody knows what that means.
And it's enough to make your scrotum shrivel up here in Angel Hernandez, right? So, but yeah, I mean, the long story short, I think that Kevin Harvick got the short end of the stick. I'm not going to say screwed because I think that what should have happened by the way the book is written in the process in which they enforce the rules, it was executed exactly how they've designed it to. There's always going to be a loser when there's penalties like that handed down. And unfortunately, and I haven't been a Kevin Harvick fan really at any point in my career, but, Chase being out, I would certainly love to see Kevin Harvick get a championship, before the season's done. So I didn't like seeing it, but it's understandable.
So
Harvick's the kind of guy that can bounce back.
You brought up a great point. It's something that it's generally one of the things I really like about NASCAR and their enforcement in general. We've seen it come into play this year with some of the issues with some of the Hendrick penalties and the other things is the way that the NASCAR rulebook is designed. It allows for a certain amount of leeway for multiple dudes of reasons because it allows for a lot to be open to interpretation. And one of the things that's kind of cool about that is so you take it, for example, you look at something like the NFL, right? One of the things that we've seen within the last 10 years in particular with the NFL is we have watched a growing, changing league in which the players have tried to do more and more to stand out or to develop their own individuality or to show off their own individuality or showing uniqueness in a league that has done so much to quote unquote protect the shield. And we've seen these weird penalties and we've seen these weird hardline takes that have come out of the league in general over things like somebody wearing a picture on their cleats or doing doing end zone dances or doing little things like that. And we see that, and it generally feels like in a lot of cases that those rules that get thrown in seem to not match the direction that the league is trying to go in. And to the original point is, that's one of the things I think is really cool about NASCAR is that, and it's for 2 reasons, is that one of the things that's cool is they leave it open to interpretation so you don't have those hardline stops. And also, those folks have to make this decision in order to make sure that a 500-mile race doesn't last for 11 hours and we're not there till 5 o'clock in the morning.
That is true.
So, and that's one of the things that I think is great. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that for all the faults that may exist with that, I think it's the right way to go. It's really the only way that you can do a streamlined, fluid run the way that NASCAR is. So I think that was... I think that's a good point to touch on. So one of the next things that I wanted to kick over here is when we were watching, we saw this incident with Alex Bowman that other people are going to have. A lot of people seem to be having some opinions. Twitter has been abuzz over the last 24 hours or so. And some people are talking about whether it's Suarez's comments on Bowman, whether it's was Bowman making an aggressive block where he didn't need to. Was he driving aggressive? Was Suarez driving aggressive? Where exactly do you fall on the spectrum on the Bowman move? as Finn runs away to go and get his Bowman hat and make sure that where do you fall on that particular situation being what ended up being a pretty landmark point on the race?
Yeah, when you see a situation like this, a pretty blatant on track infraction between two drivers, there are a couple of contextual items that have to be taken into consideration. Most importantly, is there existing beef with these two drivers? Because if yes, or if not, then it completely changes how that incident should be perceived. In this situation, there's really not a history of beef or ongoing issues between Suarez and Bowman. They're not rivals. They don't have issues with each other. Absolutely no one is surprised when Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott get together on the track. Zero people. For me to see this happen between these two drivers was surprising from one angle.
At Coda?
From one angle.
Yeah, he thought that
kind of.
Yeah, he thought Suarez thought that it was Bowman that plowed him, but somebody else plowed into Bowman. Obviously, turn one at Coda. So that got squashed very quickly. That wasn't anything that Suarez held, and that was Suarez towards Bowman, not Bowman towards Suarez.
Correct, and that's outside of that incident, I don't know that we've really talked about those two guys together in a situation like this at any point in their career. Suarez has only recently found the speed to run up front, and depending on Bowman's headspace, that he's either up front or all the way in the back. It seems so. They don't really get together a whole lot, and that wasn't really a dig at Bowman. It was just kind of an observation.
You'll find I'm not an avid protector of his.
You're welcome to dig at Bowman all you want to.
Go ahead, continue.
Alex Bowman's a really nice guy, and he's been really kind to me. So I want to specify that I'm not digging at Alex Bowman, but from a race fan who is a part-time fake race car semi-professional driver on iRacing, here are my thoughts. There was absolutely no reason for Alex Bowman to throw the first block. There was less reason for him to throw the second block. And had I been Daniel Suarez and had that been on iRacing with no real risk of real life injury, I would have sent him through the catch fence. Through the catch fence. It was absurd and nonsensical that Bowman threw the first block. No need for it. It's a restart. Ben and I discussed via text last night. Bowman had been getting torched on restarts all night. Throwing a block is not how you change your luck on a restart because that screws up everybody else's race. And I thought Suarez handled himself with class and dignity outside the care center. He said, full stop. I have no issues with Bowman. He's a fellow Chevy driver. I don't want to do that to him. I let him have the first block, and I didn't send him into the inside fence because I didn't want to wreck the guy. But you do not get a second block like that. It was ridiculous. And he said it in a very eloquent way. I feel like Daniel Suarez is like reading me love poems when he talks. He sounds like Antonio Banderas a little bit. So he's very fun to listen to, but you could tell this guy was hot. He was pissed off, right? And again, I understand from a racing perspective, if you're Alex Bowman, you're tired of losing 5-6 spots on a restart, and then you spend half of the green flag run just trying to break even, if at all. I get it. It's frustrating. You've got speed, you've got a fast car, but the thing is that you can't translate that into drastic on track behavior because you become a wrecking ball at that point. Predictability is all that these guys need from you. They don't need you to necessarily be fast week to week. You don't need to race every guy the same way. They just need to be able to race around you and not go, what in the hell did he just do? Right? That's when people get upset. It's not we got tangled up, we got wrecked, we were racing hard. It's one of those racing deals. That's why these guys don't give it's a racing deal and they wreck because it happens. But something like that is just, in my opinion, completely unprovoked and just not a good look for Alex Bowman, I think, to his peers. I don't think the fans at home will really put that much into it, but I think everybody that drives on the circuit is going to watch back the replay and they're going to go, what in the hell was Alex doing right there? Right? Because every single person on the circuit, including Alex himself, if they had been driving the 99, would have fenced the 48 100% of the time. That happened. There was no chance Alex was getting out of that without a wrecked race car. Now, where it becomes worse is you've got a kid like Harrison Burton fighting for his life to save that ride. Like, this guy's like fighting hard to get an opportunity to come back next year. And he wasn't running a terrible race. He had a little bit of speed. He's learning a lot. He's improved every week. And it just seems like he's got some bad luck, and this is no different. He did nothing wrong. There was nothing for him to deserve it. His spotter said they're wrecking high, go low. He goes low, wasn't low enough. And at Darlington, wrecks in the corners, you're sticking it. That's it. You're wrecking or you're not. There's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can go.
Right.
So for a guy like Harrison Burton to end up in the care center because of that, I said that like he got hurt. He didn't get hurt, but for a guy like Harrison Burton to end up done for the day, that to me is almost the worst part of it. Suarez is a grown man. He's going to be able to handle it with Alex, and they're going to be fine. This is not going to be a Denny and Chase situation from 2020, or I could go on and on, a Denny and fill in the blank situation. But I do think that it's something Alex is going to need to really, really think about. How would he handle that situation again? Because the reality of this is at the end of the day, Alex is in a very well-funded team, one of the most well-funded teams in the sport, right? He drives for a team that has notoriously got the fastest cars week in and week out. And he continues to be a story for things other than victory lane. And it's going to become a troubling conversation for Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick when this extension that he just got becomes due. And that's where I think Alex has got to be thinking big picture here and think, is my frustration with these restarts tonight worth creating a moment that I'm going to be remembered for in a way that I don't want to be remembered for it? And I know Alex is a guy that he's a very introspective guy. I think he's he's a guy that really considers a lot of things that you wouldn't expect for a driver. I mean, I think he puts a lot of weight into his reputation. I think he wants to be a stand-up guy, and I believe he does try to be that guy. So I would just think he would want to really go the extra mile to not create situations where he's the scapegoat or he's kind of the butt of the joke, if you will. Like I said, I don't think there was any intentionality of, I'm going to do this, and if we wreck, we wreck. I don't think that was his mindset. But you've just got to know, if you're going to throw a second block, what would you do if you're that guy, and then expect him to do that to you, and everybody would fence the car. So
right.
I don't know. I think it was careless. I think it was a moment of frustration. We've all seen guys act out of pocket in frustration. I mean, the time when Denny went nose to nose with Alex after he won it, was it Martinsville?
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, you talk about actions detrimental, I mean, that was crazy. Right. But
yeah, we had no idea what was happening in the moment.
I literally looked at my wife and I said, this is the part where Alex Bowman gets a black eye.
Yeah.
Because Denny would have done it. If he thought he could have got out of his car and got to him, he would have done it. But, and there's been, and I know I'm picking on Denny, it's kind of a meme because I do that, but like there's been those types of things the time when Chase basically, a barrel rolled Harvick at Bristol when Chase was a lap down just because he wanted to. And he told Kevin as much on pit road. I'm not going to let you around because I don't want to. Everybody does stupid stuff, right? These guys are hot-headed. Racing's very competitive. You don't have that type of competitive spirit, you don't belong in the sport, full stop, because you'll never make it. I think Alex needs to be really mindful of his position, and just the fact that he is in a well-funded Hendrick's car. He needs to understand that to a large degree, that's a party that Hendrick and Ally have thrown together, and Alex was invited to the party, right? So he needs to understand that seat could potentially go away if he doesn't start doing more of the right things in the right times. So it was a very puzzling move to begin with. And then the fact, obviously, that it kind of unleashed a little bit of carnage on some innocent bystanders, I think really kind of adds salt to the.
Yeah, no, it's a good point about the 21. It definitely sucks because if you watch the Reddit threads during the race, everything in all caps before obviously the replays came out was Burton wreck, and I always make the joke the Recky Spenhouse wreck, and Eric Jones is kind of this is like an anti-Eric Jones podcast because of Corey. Corey thinks Eric Jones is like the worst driver. He's like, every week Eric Jones is crashing. And also, first of all, shout out to Eric Jones, who is driving a complete shit box and was still fast at Darlington. That dude has got something figured out this track.
He runs Darlington well, but make no mistake, legacy cars are not shit boxes.
Those are shit boxes this year. Did you know that this week was the highest the 42 has finished all year long on a non-super speedway race?
Carson Hocevar
And
is an
17th.
exceptionally more
He's good,
skilled
he's
race
good.
car driver than Noah Gragson. Listen,
Hocevar is not playing around, dude. He's not playing
I
around.
am a Gragson apologist. I love Noah Gragson. I think he's good for the sport when he doesn't misbehave. But let's talk about real skill here. Okay. Carson Hocevar is one of the most talented individuals in the entire industry at any level, of any experience level, period. The guy is unbelievably talented behind the wheel of a race car. The big difference, though, between him and a guy like Gregson, and this is what I think really motivates and challenges Hocevar to be his best and what has pushed him to the level that he is that Gregson comes from money. And Gregson had the connection to the sport anyway with the Beard Oil folks and the Gone family out in Vegas. Gregson is who people are talking about when they talk about people with rich daddies who want to drive race cars, right? That's Noah Gregson. He's a good race car driver, right? Ty
Right.
Gibbs is a good race car driver, but they've had an unfair advantage. That's not the case with Hocevar, right? The guy's 6'2". He towers over me. He's massive.
So tall.
He's well in the sport.
Yes.
Austin
Right.
Cindric is a giant, by the way. Dude
Yeah.
should be playing in the NBA. It's crazy. I don't know how he fits in the car. Hocevar barely fits in the trucks. His knees are at his earlobes when he's driving the trucks. But anyway, Hocevar is a very humble guy. He understands that he's not going to get anywhere without working and earning his seat. In the same way, he's a Ross Chastain type of guy, right? Ross comes from a family they're financially well off because they're successful business owners, but they're not independently wealthy like, for example,
Right.
Gregson's family is. And so we've seen Ross scratch and claw for every opportunity. And now, starting next year, he's driving for a top funded team with Anheuser-Busch as his sponsor in the NASCAR Cup Series, right? Whereas I remember 5 years ago watching him drive trucks thinking like, bro, this guy needs to go back and drive a tractor. What's he doing?
Yeah, I mean,
You know
when he
what
was
I mean?
a college guy, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, all
But
right.
even, I'm talking before that,
Yeah.
when he was full time in the truck series for Nice, when they went from 2 trucks to 3.
Right.
Part of the reason they did that is to keep doing 2 rotation trucks, but they put Ross in one full time. And having gotten to know Chad, his brother. So one of the teams I work really closely with is DGM at the Xfinity level. They were the first established team to bring me into the fold in NASCAR. They took a chance on me when I didn't have the pedigree to be a vendor for these teams. And they're kind of like my racing family, and I will forever be indebted to them. And the Chastain brothers feel the same way about them because they did something similar for the Chastain brothers years ago. And that's why whenever Ross could easily go down and drive a Colin car, another Childress car at Xfinity. All of those teams would love to have him, but he is on record saying if he's driving in an Xfinity, he's driving the 91 for Mario Gosselin Racing. And part of it is because you've really got to appreciate where you come from. And how this relates to Hocevar, I promise there's a point, is that I think Hocevar is a guy cut from the same cloth as a Ross Chastain guy. He understands he's really got to put his best foot forward. And so when he gets an opportunity, right, like to run for Spire Motorsports at the Xfinity level a couple times, which for all intents and purposes is a second Hendrick Xfinity car when the 17's got Kyle Larson or William Byron in it. And then he gets that opportunity to run for Spire at Gateway when Corey LaJoie gets the call to drive the 9. He understood the assignment and he put his best foot forward. I think he came very, very well prepared mentally for that race. And then I think Darlington as well. He's had some success at the lower levels. And Darlington is the first track that Hocevar has raced at all 3 levels. So he's got a little bit of experience. He's done well at Darlington in the past. I think he saw that this was going to be a good opportunity. And the other thing is that with having a guy like Eric Jones on the other side of kind of that teammate bench, Jones is a guy that's had a lot of success here. He's going to have a lot of really good, valuable information, both for Hocevar, but also for the team and the car chief, the guys that are building the car. Eric Jones is going to be able to say the car really needs to do a little more of this and a little less of that because the way I drive it is XYZ. And so having an experienced guy who's won at this track more than once, in Eric Jones, having him in that conversation only benefited Hocevar as well. Hocevar is going to be bad fast in a slow car. You could put him in a Rick Ware car. He's going to run, probably 20 to 25th consistently, my opinion. If you do that, you put him in a team that's funded like Legacy, And especially with an opportunity like this, because you know that they've been bankrolling for this Darlington race because it was a good opportunity for them. They've got Jones in the 43.
That's a
They
good
ended
point.
up with
Yep.
Hocevar in the 42. I mean, teams are careful about where do they put their resources, right? There are some races, I'm not going to throw out names, drivers, or teams, but there are some races where some of these Xfinity teams that you expect to finish in the mid 30s every week, there's a Hendrix motor in that car for this week because they think they might have a shot, and it wasn't cheap, right? So teams will bankroll and
Right.
they'll put dollars where they think they've got their best shot, because it's not for a team like Legacy, for a team like some of the teams I was referring to in Xfinity that will remain nameless. It's not about necessarily a championship for them. They know that that's a goal that's not necessarily attainable at the budget they're operating on. So for them, it's about what can we do in short bursts, right?
Right.
Can we do well at the plate tracks? Can we be a good road course team? It's like, I mean, you've seen it all over the place. There are teams that run notoriously well at certain track types, and then they're in the back of the pack everywhere else, right? Front row, for example, strong at plate tracks and road courses. Part of it is because those are McDowell's strengths, but they're just dog water everywhere else. Teams are very specific about it. So this was a great opportunity for Hocevar. Um, I would guarantee and bet a significant amount of money that he's full time at the Cup level next year. Not sure
Yeah, I
for
think so,
who.
too.
Not sure for who, but I would almost guarantee that he's both at the Cup level and strongly outperforms expectations in the equipment, whatever that is, right? So if he ends up in, say, a Hendrix car, I would say the expectation is he's a top 15
Yeah.
driver.
I
He
mean,
ends up if he ends up in a Spire car, which the way things are shaking down,
that seems to
and
be.
I'll give you my prediction. There's rumors and scuttlebutt that there's a shakeup at Colleague. Both their Cup rides are open. We already know Haley's gone to Rick
Right.
Ware. There's rumors that AJ Allmendinger's not real hip with the schedule. He's 42 years old anyway.
Right.
Just had a baby. Sounds like AJ's probably going to go to a mostly but somewhat part-time Xfinity role for Colleague or another comparable team. I could easily see Colleague pulling a guy like because Colleague's notorious for taking risks on drivers that don't pan out. A guy like Ty Dillon going up there. There's a lot of rumor circulating that he's going to get that opportunity. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me what Chris Rice is thinking. He won't call me back to use me for crew shirts. And frankly, I'm charging him double if he does something like puts Ty Dillon in the 70s or in the 16. But if that opens up the 77, for example, you're going to see Hocevar in that seat. If a Spire ride is open, Hocevar is the first call. If it's not, then who knows? LaJoie's not going anywhere.
Right. He signed the extension. Obviously, Legacy's leaving for Charlotte. I think SVG is probably the number one I would say prospect for Colleague to throw as many resources into it. He's a Chevy guy. He's expected to come over Chevy. Whether that means, maybe there's a rental of a charter to, maybe they want to downsize to one and rent the charter for the 91, or if the 91's just going to run. I don't know what they're thinking, but if he's going to come over full-time Cup, which after the first race, you go, all right, maybe obviously he had the advantage. He's probably the world's best, road course racer with that kind of car.
Yeah.
Okay, but then he comes in on Indy and gets 10th, and it's like, okay, well, now it's consistent. That wasn't a fluke.
Good race.
Now he's got the sauce, so it'd be worth it. Hocevar going to somebody like the 16, I could see that as a potential jump. Are there any? Brandon Jones isn't exactly impressing in the, what's he in the 9?
He's in the 9.
Josh Berry's going to the 4. Justin Allgaier's a career Xfinity guy. Sam Mayer's not coming up, no matter how many people he wrecks. I don't see. If y'all didn't watch the Xfinity race, Sam Mayer wrecked the shit out of Parker Kligerman, and to win at Indy, he wrecked the shit out of Ty Gibbs. So
listen, nobody but Ty Gibbs was sad about that, but there's nobody nicer in the entire industry than Parker Kligerman, and I will argue with a wall.
Maybe
Parker
Landon
Kligerman
Castle.
is a phenomenal person.
Maybe Landon Castle.
I've never met Landon Castle, so
I always get the
speak,
two confused. That's why I consider them the nicest in the sport. But yeah, Parker does the interviews for Cup on Sunday. So
he does.
You can't get him mad on Saturday just to get interviewed, and he'll throw shade at you on Sunday. So I don't know what he was thinking. But
Here's the thing: Parker's such a good guy, he wouldn't do that. He's a consummate professional. They probably also would send Mamba over to do the interview instead of Parker because they're not stupid. But I think a lot of the things that you said are good. there's nobody that's going to leapfrog Chandler Smith as the top prospect for Colleague, in my opinion, nor should they. Chandler Smith's a hell of a race car driver. He's going to win a
You're
championship.
right, Chandler, and he's been running some cup.
And
so yeah,
he's going to win he's going to be a cup champion very soon.
Chandler Smith. All right.
I think so. Keep in mind, he's only 21 years old. He's a year younger than Hocevar. He's outperformed every expectation. I mean, granted, he's been in good equipment at every level. You know, he's Colleague in Xfinity, KBM in trucks. You know, but he made the move to Chevy, right? With the KBM move, with all of this. So that's a big prospect that, you know, that Toyota lost. Chandler Smith's a pretty highly touted guy. My opinion is I think that the 77 opens up somehow, some way. I can't fathom any scenario in which Ty Dillon ends up in the 16 or the 31. It just doesn't make sense to me.
He needs to go back down.
He doesn't bring any. Yeah. Doesn't bring any funding. You know, to me, I don't even know if it's he needs to go back down. I don't know what he needs to do. I think that he is
be a crew chief.
You know, potentially. I mean, Austin has done enough to at least like prove like, hey, I'm a good driver, and it's not just because Rick Childress is my grandpa.
I don't even know about that, but yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely proven more.
Yeah. I mean, he's won the Daytona 500. He's got a couple wins. He makes the playoffs mostly. You know, obviously not this year, but I mean, he's a perennial playoff contender. And then there's Ty, right, who can't even get a ride with Childress outside of a handful of Xfinity Series teams. So long story short, I don't see Ty Dillon going to Colleague. I think the 77 opens up. I think that's Hocevar. I think that you're gonna see, assuming AJ leaves, like is speculated, you're gonna see the 16. They're gonna put a full-time butt in the seat, and then the 31, it's gonna be a rotation, I think, and that's where you're gonna see Chandler Smith, you know, running probably 10 to 12 races next year. I think they throw Hemrick in there for a couple races. There's been some rumors that Hemrick could be the full-time guy at the Cup level. He didn't have much success at Childress Cup, but he did run the full season. He does have a full-time ride under his belt.
I don't know. One single win on Xfinity is not going to be enough.
Does have a championship, so
because of the one race, fucker. That's Austin Cindric's ring.
Somebody once told me that Phoenix in the fall is the most important race on the entire circuit. Not going to name names. I don't agree with that.
Is he going to bring up this argument?
But somebody told me that. I don't think it's correct.
Doesn't make you the best driver for a seat, but it is inherently for championship winning purposes.
I mean, look, Chase Elliott's the best driver for every seat, but only one team can sign Chase Elliott. So therefore, some people get stuck with Denny Hamlin, right?
Yeah.
I think there's two things that really need to be decided before silly season's really going to start. Everybody in the industry is waiting on Denny Hamlin and what he's going to do. If he does not re-sign with Gibbs, he's made it very clear he's either going to get the contract he wants from coach, or he's putting a third car out there and he's driving it, and it's that simple.
Right. And it may not be a Toyota.
Well, maybe not, but it's going to be, because Toyota's not going to lose them, I don't think. And he's not going to want to give up. He's not going to want to give up the alliance with Gibbs, because none of the other big Cup teams are going to have their respect for Denny to sign in an alliance with him. So he's not going to leave Toyota. He's blowing smoke for that. That being said, once Denny's situation is decided, the chips are going to start falling. I think the 77 is open. I think Hocevar goes there.
Okay.
I think that if Dillon stays with Spire, he gets bumped to a part-time Xfinity ride for them to fill it. I think they run the car every full time. He runs it when there's not one of Hendrick's guys wanting to drive it in the Xfinity series. I think Ty's like a Ryan Preece type guy. Hey, you're up when we don't have anybody else. You know, that's kind of the role Preece has had for Stewart-Haas for the last 2 years. And then I think that Chandler Smith within 2 years will be full-time at the Cup level for Colleague. As it relates to Shane Van Gisbergen, I think he runs NASCAR full-time next year, but not at the Cup level. I think that he's going to essentially run an equitable full-time schedule, but he's going to run everything everywhere for a couple of different Chevy teams. I think you're going to see him in some Colleague equipment. I think you're going to see him in some Nice equipment at the truck level. I think you're going to see him in Trackhouse and potentially Colleague at the Cup level. I could easily see him coming in and being a guy that runs the 91, but maybe there's a race where Trackhouse doesn't want to fund a third car, but it's a road course. He jumps into the Colleague part-time car and goes with it, because I do
Gotcha.
think that Trackhouse does have a technical alliance with Childress, but I think Trackhouse is quickly getting to the point where they're becoming kind of a big four team. And I think you're going to end up solid tuck under Trackhouse, and that's going to be the alliance.
I think, just to interrupt you, I think Justin Marks is going to buy either the 10 or the 41 from Stuart Haas.
Say that one more time.
I said I think that they are going to find a way to get a full-time charter at Trackhouse, and I think that's going to come from Stuart Haas. And one of the things we've talked about a lot with Corey being a Briscoe fan, I think it is in their best interest to downsize. I would say go as drastic as make it 2 teams, because Kevin Harvick has been carrying Stuart Haas since Tony retired.
They have been adamant that they're not going to do that.
They only added way back in the day, because they were 2 cars to start, right? Wasn't it Tony and Clint? And they only added due to, if I'm not mistaken, Clint claimed later, they only added because of Danica.
Well, they merged with Haas,
right.
And for the first probably 5 seasons, Tony had 2 cars, Gene had his. They were separate. They were built by 2 separate teams. There was not a lot. I mean, there was sharing things in the sense like they were corporately and collectively a common business, but it was as if there were 2 camps.
Right.
You know, which to a degree, that's kind of how Hendricks Motorsports ran during the mid 2000s, when you had Jeff doing his deal with the 24, and then Jeff had part ownership of the 48, but Jeff had nothing to do with the 5, or at the time the 25, and then the 88. So it was a similar type model, but eventually
when Junior came over, it was 88-48. But you were right. Before the Junior merger came in, it was 24-48. 525, which honestly it was 5, and then whatever they were testing out that week for the Brian Vickers or Casey Mears car, because that shit was abysmal. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Corey, you mentioned that you think, what do you think is best? What would you like to see from you?
I don't have any problem with SHR shrinking, but I don't think they're going to.
Right.
Like I wouldn't necessarily have any issue with it. I just don't foresee it being a thing. They have been adamant that they're not going to sell any charters.
Right.
So like if I understand that's a speculation, and maybe it even makes sense from a competitiveness perspective, but it's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to give the charter. It's worth too much money.
At a minimum, sunsetting the 10 and letting that go. I mean, again, they're losing Anheuser-Busch money. Right, yeah. They're losing all of Eric Almirola Smithfield money, right? Because that's the reason Eric Almirola still has a job. It's not because he knows how to win races. It's because of his sponsorship. Smithfield. That's the downside of it, right? Yeah. So my thought is, if they get rid of the 10, you can. Because all right, Nate, I'm gonna ask you to do something, because obviously Corey's joined, hadn't even gotten to see him win. Am I wrong in when I tell him that Chase Briscoe's a top 5 prospect in NASCAR? Prospect is being a loose term. But like in terms of young drivers in the sport, Briscoe should be high on everybody's list. Am I wrong on that assumption?
No, not at all. Not at all. Briscoe should be near the top of everybody's list of young, talented drivers.
Yeah, like we're talking all these names. If Briscoe were to get out of the 14, he's the first call. He's the first call for almost everybody, not named maybe John Hunter Nemechek. But even then, I still think it would go over John Hunter. I mean, in terms of prospects right now, it probably goes Todd Gilliland at the top of the list, who's we didn't talk about Giants earlier, but he's my, I don't know if I told you about this, Nate. I'm pretty much a Todd Gilliland fan at this point. I think he deserves to be in the 21 over Harrison Burton. That's my point. But, I mean, I can't think of a single, I mean, you see what he can do, and they're throwing some shit boxes out there for Stuart Haas. So,
yeah.
But Briscoe is really, and if the more that they can focus on the 14, because you're bringing over Barry's risky. Barry does not have a win in Xfinity this year, right?
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
At least he didn't as of this weekend.
Right.
And he didn't win this weekend, so.
And I love the guy. I mean, I get it. He's a home ground, short track legend, Junior's friend. That's great. And I'm happy that somebody that doesn't have nepotism ties, who literally started his career meeting Dale Jr. on iRacing, and being a short track guy and figuring out, I'm glad. But at the end of the day, I was just talking shit about Daniel Hemrick not getting a win and not being worthy of a ride. Josh Berry has wins, but not this year. I don't think I can see a situation where you can go from not winning in Xfinity in a Hendrick Hendrick car, JRM car, to wheeling the Ford to victory? They're already slow every week.
So I understand what you're saying. I think the Stewart-Haas conundrum is very unique. They've lacked speed. Kevin Harvick has been pushing sleds to the top 10 for the last 2 years. Um, I agree they're not going to sell a charter. They might sell the whole team. It's going to be one or the other. It's going to be black
You
and
mean
white.
like straight up, not not
The
against
whole
Stewart Haas
team.
anymore? Interesting.
Correct. Or at minimum, the Haas half might go to and Tony will step back as managing partner. A couple reasons. Tony's married. Tony now has invested millions of dollars into Eldora. It's a full-time project for him.
Right.
On top of,
That's all right.
he's decided his wife can't be a better drag racer than him, so he's running Top Fuels now. He's obviously Tony carries sponsorship from Mobile One and Bass Pro and all those redneck brands wherever he goes. I just think Tony's interested in being a managing partner at a Cup Series race team that's competitive day to day is dwindling, and I think that the team has suffered for that.
So who
I
buys?
think that you can't.
Junior? Junior's been wanting to get in the Cup.
I think that Junior's been wanting to get into Cup because Junior's a racer. I think that Kelly has no interest, and Kelly is fighting him and fighting him and fighting him and fighting him. So what I think could potentially happen is I think they sell JRM to Jeff Gordon, and then they take the proceeds to potentially, and this is like a 4-year plan. This is not going to happen next year. I think that there was no arm twisting. Tony Stewart was on board from the even prospect of it. But I think coming into this past year, if I'm Tony Stewart, I think there's no shot I have a chance at a guy like Josh Berry, but boy, if I could get him, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same way that the second Kyle Larson got suspended, Tony Stewart called NASCAR and said, I want to know 2 weeks before he's reinstated because he's mine. I want him.
Right.
And he ended up losing the bidding war to Hendricks, right? Tony wants guys who have a certain type of charisma.
Grit.
You know,
he hates nepo babies. We you could say what it is. He hates the nepo babies. He wants the dogs.
It's not even that. He would take a nepo baby if that nepo baby could wheel the fuck out of a car.
Right.
You know, if Gregson was the driver that Hocevar was, he would sign Gregson. Who cares if his dad's got money? Great. It's easier to sponsor the car. But Josh Berry's the type of guy. He's a Chase Briscoe type guy. He's a Kyle Larson type guy. He's a short track guy who has consistently been able to get it done. I think Tony wants guys who don't even look at the national circuits until their mid-20s because they can't do anything else at short tracks. That's the guy Tony wants. That's the guy Josh Berry is. But keep in mind, Josh Berry is forever and ever, amen, will be a Dale Jr. guy. I would be willing to bet that where there's smoke, there's fire. And if Junior ends up into the Cup Series, it's there. Because if I know something, it's that Jeff Gordon is a big enough personality. The guy's an absolute little person, like one of the smallest people I've ever seen in my life. Like makes Kyle Larson look somewhat like an NFL player.
Jeff is tiny,
but he's a huge personality. There's not going to be room in that organization for Jeff and Dale Jr. And Kelly, because at the end of the day, Kelly makes the organization profitable.
Right.
Dale Jr.'s the face, right? There's not going to be room there. So if they're going to get into Cup, this whole JRM deal with Hendricks is going to need to change. It's going to be in everyone's best interest for that to look and feel different. And they've said many, many times before, Cup is too expensive. We don't want to spend the money. It's great. It'd be cool, but it's more of a why. It's not as profitable. You see a lot of family-run race teams at the Truck and Xfinity level because it's possible to be profitable, somewhat competitive, and support your family. At the Cup level, unless you have multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals, which are not a guarantee at any team at any level, not a guarantee. That's why HendrickCars.com is on so many cars for Hendrick's team because it's not guaranteed. And if you're going to get into Cup as the Earnhardt family, they have a little bit of experience in that realm, and it went sort of well, and they were very competitive. They were really fast. They had a lot of great personnel, and they ended up being very not profitable, right? So they're not going to be able to sit here and run an over budget deficit spending Xfinity team and a cup team, Now, if Junior buys the team, he's selling 2 charters. He'll run 2 cars. He won't run 4.
That's what I think.
He keeps Josh Berry and he keeps Chase Briscoe. That's your team. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, if they can get some really fast equipment and put those 2 guys in a 2-car team, it may be a long time before another team wins a short track race at the cup level. Because I'm telling you right now, if you put Chase Briscoe in a fast car on a short track,
good luck.
He's almost impossible to beat. He's one of the best short track cup drivers. It's one of the things that made Gordon so good. It's one of the reasons that I have trouble ranking Jimmy Johnson ahead of him is because Jimmy has and the things he was dominant at, but man, Gordon would whip your ass on a short track. Yeah. Same with Tony Stewart. He could win on any type of track. So it's definitely an interesting situation. I choose to believe, because I think it would be really cool, I choose to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire, and that eventually I think, that Stewart-Haas team could end up, I think it would look at first a partnership, and it would be more Kelly and Dale kind of running the day-to-day with Tony assisting and bringing in some of those sponsor dollars. But I mean, imagine the Earnhardts. They'd go back to Chevy, obviously, of course, because I don't think Tony gives a shit who the manufacturer is.
Yeah.
He raced for literally all of them.
And that's the only issue there is I think Briscoe's a big Ford Performance School guy, which would cause issue. But
that's their lead driver for Ford Performance Racing School.
Right. So there is that to consider.
For the record, if SHR goes to Chevy, I will immediately bail. Immediately bail.
Yeah, part of
it'll be instantaneous. It'll be instantaneous. All the Briscoe shit will get put in a closet.
He doesn't even like Raja Caruth because he's a Chevy.
It'll be all Busher, dude. I'll be buying 17 gear so fast it'll make your fucking head spin, dude.
Yeah. So the last tidbit, I'm with you, and I would love to see that. I almost like the idea of Dale buying out, getting in there, because I would love to see like DEI again. I just think it would be something that would be really cool for the sport.
Nostalgic.
Very nostalgic for sure. But the one thing, if money is in the mind, what can help them? There is the TV deal that's been yet to announce for NASCAR coming soon. That could help somebody like Junior over the edge if there could be some funding for that. So, but if we keep going, we're going to go forever. So let's get Corey's victory lane here. What was your team? Do you even remember? Does it even matter who you chose this week for fantasy, Corey?
Yeah, I went with Harvick. I had a bunch of Ford guys. I had Denny, and I had to bench. I ended up putting Busher in for Bell because I had Bell because we had another Bell weekend where he just seems to just make contact with stuff. And like Chris Bell is very quickly becoming, while I like Chris Bell more than I like Eric Jones, Chris Bell is very, very quickly getting to the Eric Jones list for your boy Corey here. Cause I don't know. He just keeps running into shit. And you know what? Let's make that my victory lane. I brought it up last week, and I'm telling you right now, this guy cost himself the race this week. He was running, I think he qualified second. He had a super fast car. He hit the wall so hard. He hit the wall so hard. Everyone was hitting the wall. But Chris Bell just continues to find his way to running into stuff. And I wish he would stop doing that because that is a super fast car that he is in. I like him. I like the team. Like JGR has obviously like sentimental ties for me, even if I don't actively like root for any of their drivers. But man, you gotta just look at that and go, sheesh, stop running into stuff, guy. Chris Bell.
Yeah. All right.
I just mean like I don't know.
I was making sure to let you get through. That is the premise of the whole
victory lane.
Deal. What I was gonna say to anything with part of that, I mean, I don't know. Like, you're right in some of the past couple of races in particular. That's definitely something to keep in mind for the way Bell has not performed in the last couple of races in the same way that we saw him towards the end of the season. That's been a recurring pattern. We've talked about that numerous times. But the other thing is Darlington isn't always the best gauge on that track just because of the fact that I mean,
It is difficult.
everybody hits the wall at Darlington. If you don't, you're doing something wrong, to be honest with you. It's one of the few tracks where you can actually say that.
Well, Bowman didn't hit the wall. He just hit Daniel Suarez.
Yeah.
But he had that going. I'm with you.
I got one more thing.
I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, man, go ahead on Chris Bell. I'm sorry.
Your victory lane. All I was going to say
I got another question. I got another question for you, though,
yeah.
after this. After your
I
take
was just
on
going to
Bell.
say, right now, Bell is the first person in on the cut line at the 12th spot for the next round. And I think out of the names there, Stenhouse, McDowell, Harvick, Bubba, Bell, Logano, outside of obviously Stenhouse and McDowell, I think Bell has got the worst to worry about right now. Logano's got that veteranship. Bubba's been running fast. He finished top 6 or 7th, I think. Harvick obviously is a veteran, a champion, very fast. I think Bell should be in full panic mode because they are not putting together races. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
so,
it's not going well for him.
It hasn't been anything complete. I think that's the big factor, right? Is even if it's a good qualification, even if it's decent there towards the beginning and giving himself a chance at the beginning of the race, they haven't been able to string together a complete start to finish race. And that is one of the key things to do in the playoffs in particular. You have to do that. It's not just, just try and get out there and squeeze a win out. That's what you're waiting for through the regular season. Right. That's what that's for. In the playoffs, the key and the way to win is to string together every stage in a way that gives you the opportunity to, more than anything else, you are trying to find a way to string yourself together to get into that top 10, to get to that top 5 in the playoffs, almost more so than you're trying to gun for that first place. Obviously, you want those points, but you got to get any points when you're running through these playoffs because, there comes a point where it's kill or be killed, so that's kind of what you're looking for. And Bell that team for the last few weeks in general just hasn't found a way to piece it together all the way through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this week
what's
up?
Let me do one last thing. Let me do one last thing on Darlington because this is a concern that I had. Okay. The thing with the lights not working, like, I feel like when you start talking about, and the root of my question is, how much are facilities a problem for NASCAR? Right? Because we just saw this year, we saw the last race that they're going to have at Auto Club, right? So they're getting rid of Auto Club, but they have all these old tracks like Darlington, like Martinsville, that have been around, Daytona and so on and so forth, that have been around for like 70 years. Like, these buildings, this infrastructure is very old. Is that something are we going to continue to see those types of problems? Because Darlington was built in like the 1950s.
Right.
And then you put them on primetime TV, on a Sunday night on NBC and have the lights not work. Like, that's not a good look.
For what it's worth, the lights didn't work in a couple Super Bowls. So there's that. True. I mean, obviously you can never plan for those things, but I would say NASCAR doesn't have much of an excuse. Or as the track, not NASCAR, but the track owners, it just makes sense. Hey guys, we got a race in a week. Let's make sure the lights fucking work.
Make sure everything works.
Well, we're at this point now where we're those things are so much, they are more quickly than ever and more easily than ever getting pointed out in ways that they were easily able to shade before. There used to be a time in many I mean, like, Finn, you'll remember this point. There was a time, like when you take TV broadcasts, for example, where it wasn't about a TV deal. The tracks determined who broadcasted the race. Right. And they had ultimate control over what was getting broadcast and what was going over. It was the track that was running everything. So they had those PR calls. We're seeing a time now in the age of, huge multi-billion-dollar TV deals, social media, scrutiny and spotlights being able to be placed on anything, where I just don't think that a lot of those things they're not going to fly for as long. So there's not going to be much of a choice then to fix that. Right. A situation like this with Darlington, Darlington's been open since 1950. It's been around for a very long time. It's a crown jewel track. It is a spotlight track. And for something like that to go on, I can guarantee you somebody was getting chewed out pretty heavily over a situation like the lights not working. There were some people that were panicking because we are just not at a point where that kind of thing can be shaded over anymore. Right. And it's been that way for quite a while. But yeah, I guarantee you someone was getting chewed out over those lights.
You're right. And really, it wasn't the biggest deal. Now, if the lights didn't work and they had to kill the fucking Southern 500, That would have been a big fucking problem. Now, I want to do a plus though for Darlington. This is the only track I've been to that has Wi-Fi. Not only Wi-Fi, usable Wi-Fi. I was watching the Colorado game in the stands at Darlington. I was watching the Colorado football game on my phone in the stands. I've never been able to do that at a race. Always
You're confident
the worst.
It would be like that for a cup race as well?
There was a lot of fucking people. There was a lot of
Okay.
people at the track. Also, not all them rednecks know how to work Wi-Fi on their phones. So I don't even think half of them.
Wait a minute. Wait a damn minute.
Nate's back.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, you have to bring your millennial or Gen Z grandchildren to the race for that to happen and work your day. Show me how to do the TikToks. I want to get a message for Bubba. So,
Lord.
So my point is though, one of the
Welcome
things.
to the pod, Nate.
Yeah. One of the things though, as you are talking about, and Nate, what he's talking about, just to keep it quick here, was infrastructure on the tracks. Are we concerned? Not so much at the ability to hold a race, but for as we're improving this is the first season in NASCAR history that all cars on the track have a camera, an onboard camera on them at all times. They started in the playoffs last year, and now all that. Okay, well now that's 7 times as many camera feeds that have to be monitored, right? What happens when they start improving the experience, right? How long until there's 3D cameras that are movable or managed on the top of? I don't know what the technical limits or expansion that NASCAR is looking for. But all I'm saying is we're going to hit a point where the infrastructure that at the track isn't going to be able to keep up if that is required in the process.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, because the technology they can put into the cars is basically limited only by size, right? It costs a lot more money to put infrastructure in a racetrack than it does to put infrastructure in a race car.
Well, just expect to be buying really cold Papa John's from a shitty stand for the rest of your races. And don't buy the sweets at Richmond. Just remember that. These guys had sweet spots at Richmond, and it was horrible. You'd have to go watch that, Nate. All right, so moving on to Kansas. Jeff, you got the fast facts for the track, my friend?
I sure do. Fast facts for Kansas go like follows. So the track broke ground in 1999. The first race was in 2001. This is a 1.5 mile track and has become one of the more fun fast tracks on the schedule over the last few years in particular. The banking goes from 17 to 20 degrees. It is progressive throughout the track. The attendance for the stands run at 48,000. And the lap record that we have there is from Kyle Larson in 2015 at 28.857 seconds.
Yeah, that guy's quick there.
That was a quick run.
Who's the most winningest driver in the Cup Series at Kansas?
Kevin Harvick.
Is it Happy?
I believe so. I hate it.
I mean, it was a Darlington, so.
Yeah. Normally, it's either Jeff, Petty, Harvick, or Jimmy. That's normally what it ends up being.
Well, it's not going to be Petty if the track was built in 1999.
Dale Sr. is the winningest driver at Darlington.
Yeah, is that Darlington? Maybe they were talking about active driver. They were talking about Harvick a lot last week, but that might be for the active drivers.
Dale Sr. won 9 times on the Southern 500.
Gotcha. So I often say that Kansas now is what Auto Club was in the 2000s, a really big 1.5 miles, really wide, multiple lanes, extremely fast. The race earlier in the year there was, I think we all said it was the best race of the year, 1.5 miles wise, right? Can I think of a better track?
So far, dude, that's earlier. That race there earlier this year. That was
Kyle Larson, Reddick, Bell fighting it out at the beginning. Larson gets spun. Larson then ends up in the back of the track. And I remember putting the camera on to watch him, and I think I watched him pass 70 cars. I don't even know how it's possible he did that, but he passed 70 cars using every single lane possible. So, just genuinely there. And then gets to the front. I think because of that early wreck, he didn't have the tires. He's trying to hold off a hard-charging Denny Hamlin. Hamlin forgets that the track's wide and just puts him in the wall instead and goes and gets the win. But no, really, I really enjoyed that race. If you remember that one.
Winningest driver ever at Kansas? Denny Hamlin.
That's when our guys, Corey, were finished like in the 30th. I don't actually, you know what? I think Bowman had a broken back at this point. So
that was every race this year, though.
I want to ask. I already said my piece, which is right now the way the playoffs look, guys. It's Stenhouse, McDowell, Harvick, and Bubba. That's out of the cut line, and then Bell and Logano are the closest to at the cut line, but are in. Obviously, Stenhouse and McDowell are the guys that were like, all right, whatever. So I'll start with you, Jeff. Between Harvick, Bubba, Bell, Logano, who are you most concerned about not making the playoffs in that group? Who needs a strong Kansas? Because Martinsville next and anything can happen.
I would say Logano, honestly.
You think of Logano?
I really am. For one, as far as Kansas is concerned, Toyota runs Kansas pretty well. But I really think that just in general, Logano needs to come out and swing hard here at some point. He's got to get up there. I mean, it's just got to happen. I think we mentioned it last week as well. This just hasn't been that kind of a season for him.
Penske as a whole.
If there's going to be a time for him to make a statement, I really think it's got to happen soon, and he's got to come out there and knock somebody out. It's just got to get there. So I think out of that group in particular, as much as I want to say that I want to see Bubba get there, I think it's going to have to be Logano as far as, just objectively, he's got to be the one to go out there and make a showing.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know what Logano's history at Martinsville is. I can't say I normally expect him up the front. I mean, he did look good in some.
Fast.
Is he quick? I know he does well at some of he's always really good at the
someone always wrecks
Flash.
Him. He's been dumped at Martinsville like 3 times from the lead.
But that's another thing too to keep in mind when it comes to Martinsville, and you got Joey Logano in front of you. Logano doesn't have a lot of friends, so on a track where getting dumped for a playoff spot can occur. Wait, not Martinsville. What am I talking about? Martinsville's like
Bristol.
What am I talking about? Cut it out. Short track. Sorry, short track. And even then, kind of the same deal, right? Bristol is just a track that somebody will get spun, get hit, and go, I'll own that one. But yeah, I think right now everybody should be locked in at Kansas because, I mean, shit. You remember how dominant RFK was at Bristol when we were there, Nate? The 6 led most of the race. The 17 finished it off. And right now, is there a team hotter in NASCAR than RFK?
Well, yeah, Keselowski's hot garbage like usual. But
no, he was a top 10 car last week, man.
Buescher finding the speed that he's found is both not surprising and also surprising to me. It's not surprising that Christopher Buescher is fast because he's a hell of a race car driver. Also not surprising that bringing Keselowski on board gave Roush Fenway an opportunity to get back to their roots as a fast, high-performing race team. What is surprising to me is that they've seemingly found it for the 17 and not the 6.
He's in playoffs. He's not even on this list here, man. What are you talking about?
But
they're not winning races, but he's had plenty of speed.
Sure, but Keselowski ran every race this season. He has fewer top 5 finishes than Chase Elliott and only one more top 10 finish than Chase Elliott. And Chase missed a third of the season due to injury and suspension. So we can sit here and say that Keselowski is on that plane, but we know that he isn't, right? Because you look at Buescher, Buescher has 3 wins this year and 13 top 10s, right? He's got a significantly better stat line than Keselowski. Those 2 teams are not running on the same playing field. Now, that could be by design, right? Maybe Keselowski is driving the R&D car, and as they figure things out, they slap that bitch on Buescher's car and say, go win, bud.
Right.
But I also think you are seeing the fruits of the labor of a guy like Christopher Buescher who has earned his stripes. He's put his time in. He has grinded his way to a fast car in the Cup Series, and he's done it by racing people respectfully. When was the last time somebody took Christopher Buescher out?
Right.
You'd have to go back a long time. You'd also have to go back just as far to find out when was the last time Chris Buescher did something like what we saw from Bowman and Suarez, like what we've seen, like the Kenseth Logano event at Martinsville, right? Buescher's not that guy. He runs clean. He races people fairly. It's part of the reason McDowell has had such a success at the plate tracks is guys love him to a degree.
Right.
And on track, he's very respected as a driver.
Right. Right. Yeah. McDowell, I know a lot of people from a personality standpoint don't like him, but yeah, absolutely. McDowell's definitely known as.
It's not that they don't like him. It's that he's Preacher McDowell when he's not in his fire suit.
I've heard. I didn't want to get all about it, but I've definitely heard.
Well, and it's not even so much. It's not even so much about the content of what he's saying. It's like not everybody wants, like, even people of faith don't want to be preached to when they're at work, right? You go to church for that. That's all I'll say.
Right.
Not always trying to listen to the good news all the time. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's a very, very succinct way of putting that. But by and large, when it comes to the playoffs, this is a really, really good round for Bubba. I personally don't think that Bubba is going to miss this first cut.
Yeah, he won this race last year in a dominant fashion,
and he finished 7th yesterday.
Finished 7th yesterday. Won this race last year.
Yeah.
He has traditionally run pretty well at Bristol if he stays out of trouble.
Right.
He tends to get involved in some shit because he's aggressive. But I mean, you got to understand, Martinsville was Bubba's track for a long time. That's
Correct.
where he won his first race in the truck series.
Right.
You know, I mean, Bubba runs the short tracks really well. This is a good round for Bubba. This is not a good round for Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. He did win Martinsville last year, but this is not a good round for Christopher Bell. I think if somebody's going to get surprised, it's going to be him. I personally think NASCAR would slap a bottle of nitrous in Harvick's car rather than let him get bounced in the first round. I still think that somebody screwed up and got fired when Jimmy didn't make the playoffs in his final season. I think that NASCAR really wants certain things to go.
I mean, they could have just appealed the Charlotte penalty. That would have done it for Jimmy Johnson.
That would have been a little too obvious. I think it's something like making sure Dale Jr. wins at Daytona in the summer of 01.
Right.
Ask around the garage.
Are you gonna be the one to throw a block or dump him after his father died? No.
It's not even that. Right. It's like just ask some of the old guys,
the conspiracies
some of the old
out
heads.
Here. I bring Nate on the podcast one time. We're 30 minutes over, and we're blaming.
I won't share some of the good ones on the air because I don't want to be offed. But
I agree with you though on Bell though.
There's some.
And you missed it.
I'd tell you, but I'd be killed.
Yeah. He was also you missed it earlier, but
one of them I would be.
But Corey was talking a lot about how he's very worried that Bell just is looking awful. He doesn't look like the composed guy. I mean, there was a point in this season where Bell was atop the power rankings. Bell
was a pit stop away from being a champion. That's been your point this whole year, Finn.
He was a
one
pit
bad
stop away from being a champion last year.
From being the defending champion.
Right.
And to see him I mean, he just doesn't look like the same guy. I don't know. And it's
summer slump, man.
So sharp. And
these young guys. It's a Bowman issue. It's a William Byron issue, kind of. I mean, he even struggled, even though he got 5 wins.
Chicago. He was leading at Chicago, and then he got cooked, and then he just hasn't been the same since.
Yeah. Well, great point. They're bringing up William Byron because that's an example of a guy that has come. He's kind of coming into the other side of that pinnacle, right? Of the learning curve. You know, Byron's. I think Alex Bowman's older than Byron.
Bowman's 28, 29, but Byron's 24, 25. So
yeah, so it's not even really about an age thing for me. I think it's just about a maturity as a race car driver, not even necessarily as a person.
Right.
I have heard on good authority that William Byron still has a lot of growing up to do off the track, which is fine. We love that. But William Byron has kind of started to figure out how to win races, right? It's more than just how to be fast, how to turn good lap times. You know, Danica qualified very fast at a lot of tracks. She couldn't win a race. You know, big difference between the two. Byron's figured it out this year. 5 wins, 10 top 5s, 14 top 10s, I think it is. That's a Jeff Gordon in his prime stat line, right? In that 24. And so, you know, you look at a guy, you've got Larson, Byron, Reddick. It's a race for the 4th spot. Let's be honest, you know, and I promise you, if Kyle Busch can put you in the stands to get there, he will. 100% of the time. Because he's Kyle Busch and he's earned the right to do that. Logano's another guy. If he can wreck you to get in, he will, because he's earned that right. Multiple time champion. You know, he's proven his worth on the track. I mean, so you look at guys like Christopher Bell, you know, Keselowski, Chastain, Bubba, guys who have a shot, but I don't think people are really considering them as threats for that 4. I think Christopher Bell is the only one kind of the guys that we've named that really probably should be in that top 4, but probably won't be. But keep in mind, Christopher Bell had a really, really clutch round of 8 last year. Obviously the Martinsville win.
He definitely clutched his way to the championship round.
Well, the
100%.
Roval win is what got him. Yeah, Roval win, Martinsville win.
The Roval win put him into the round of 8. The Martinsville win put him into the round of 4. He did exactly what Chase Elliott did in 2020, minus winning in Phoenix. And so I think that if Christopher Bell can really catch some steam, I think, and the thing is, I don't even think these guys necessarily need to worry about winning a race to get into the next round, because you're going to see some non-playoff drivers win races. I will be floored if Chase Elliott does not win the road. Absolutely floored.
Yeah.
Because they're going to give him the fast car. You're not going to give Byron the fast car on the road course. You're wasting your freaking money. They're going to give it to Chase, because Larson's probably already going to be locked in. Byron's probably already going to be locked in. Give Chase the fast car, let him go get his win, and then play Call of Duty all off season with me. And
no more snowboarding.
No, so funny story. I played Call of Duty with him the night before his accident, and he was just calm, cool, collected, and you would have never known that the next day he was going to piss off like 10 million race fans. It's great. But McDowell, I like the guy, like seeing him have a recent bout of success. I desperately want Stewart Haas to put him in a car if they're going to get serious about winning on road courses. Briscoe's a decent road course driver, but I mean, I think McDowell's earned a shot, but he's going to be out. Stenhouse is like the guy who snuck in because he won the plate track, and it happened.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's ever expecting him to do it.
Right. And
Busher is what he was supposed to be.
Busher is what yes, that's a great way to put it. So we'll see. I mean, if you're asking me, gun to my head, who's going to be the surprise early exit? Personally, I think it's Chastain.
Yeah, I mean he's not on the list, but obviously a lot can change. Yeah, they've been dog shit lately. You're absolutely right. They've been pretty brutal. They've been pretty brutal.
It's not been great. Yeah, it's not.
So let's go ahead, hit some predictions. We'll start with you, Jeff, then Corey, Nathan, and myself. For Kansas, who do we got? Who's winning? And your quick sentence blurb on it, and then we'll get up out of here.
Well, it's funny because based on what Nate was saying before, I just can't help but think about one of those like seconds before disaster memes, and it's Chase Elliott sitting on his couch like he's one shot, he's behind the just calling out Call of Duty turns, and then the next day it's like 24 hours later, and then everybody's just screaming about what happened from snowboarding.
Yeah, it's funny because his COD comms are one sniper over here, one guy getting me under the stairs, like he's as calm and collected as you would ever think he would be. I don't think he likes playing with me very much because I'm really loud and obnoxious and I rage. So.
It's a contrast, right?
Yeah. I'm not his go-to COD partner.
Fair. So I think in regards to coming up here on Sunday, for Kansas, my prediction is I think that Tyler Reddick gets I think he finds his way to the front this time and actually gets up there and completes the race. He's been quick. I thought he ran really well at Darlington throughout the majority of the race. He was in it. He had one of the faster cars throughout the race. I think he's there. And I think this is one in which he has the chance to actually put off. Like I said, Toyota's run pretty quick at Kansas as of late. So, and I think he'd be the one to get there. It doesn't mean that, I think it comes down between him and Bubba. You have to consider that, and based on what happened with Bubba last year. But I think Reddick's the one that goes and pulls out the win. What do you guys think?
Corey, what do you got?
Well, mine's easy. Mine's Chris Busher. He hasn't finished outside the top 3 on an oval since Richmond, and he's won 2 of them. The guy is just blazing fast, and I don't see any reason why we're not talking minimum a top 5 for Chris Busher again, and basically locking up a pass into the round of 12. But if anyone's got a shot to win this thing, no one's got a better shot than Chris Busher. So, and I think, Jeff, to your point, the Reddick would be another one, and was on his way to a victory yesterday, and just something was wrong with his car too. They were talking about they were having problems with his transmission. So yeah, Reddick I could see, but I got Busher.
Finn, what do you got?
Well, I'm gonna let Nate go real quick. I'm gonna finish it
There you
off
go.
because I think I got the most surprise of the bunch.
Finn's playing closer.
So I'm gonna go stab myself in the eyeballs after I give my prediction, but Denny Hamlin's gonna win at Kansas, and he's got to. He's got to, because he's sitting fifth in playoff standings right now after Darlington. He was the fastest car in the first two stages. And Denny, if he's around at the end, so here's the business side of this scenario. Reddick is gonna move through. He does not need to win his way into the next round. Bubba has to win his way into the next round, right? So if Denny's kind of on that fence. So if Denny's around at the end, Denny's gonna move him, or they'll move for him, one of the two. I'm not saying he wrecks him, but Denny's not their teammate this week. And if he's there at the end, he's going to win. I think Reddick's probably going to be up front most of the day. Bubba probably will, but I think this is a situation. The stakes are much higher. I think if Bubba's in the playoffs last year, I'm not sure he wins that race. He made some mistakes, but recovered nicely. Bubba gets in his own way a lot of times, and he acknowledges that. I mean, he's one of the most introspective drivers, I think, on the circuit. He's just very vocal in his introspection, and it annoys hillbilly race fans. With that being said, I think Bubba and Reddick are up there. I think Denny pulls off the win. I think Truex continues the slide and trajectory. I think mentally he's out. I think he's starting to check out. I know he's not done yet. He's got some time left. He signed till the end of next year, is it, Finn? His extension?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, but I think he's essentially going to be filling a seat for coach next year. I think he's checked out. So I think Truex is done. Logano's got too big of a gap. I think he probably gets through, but I can't see him sticking around. So I think that Denny is in the best position to be one of these currently mid-pack guys to come out and surprise some people. I think Byron, Larson, Reddick, and Busher all have a good shot. But I don't think you see Larson really, banging doors with anybody. I also don't think he's going to get the fast car this week. I think they're going to put Byron in the fast car. We'll see. Byron's not historically had a lot of success at Kansas. He's been pretty inconsistent there, so we'll see. Unfortunately, I think Denny's gonna take this, and I do think Denny's gonna end up with the inducted into the Hall of Fame with 0 championships, but I think this might be the year he gets the absolute closest.
Gotcha.
Well, Nate, it's good to have another Denny fan on the pod. Just
good to not feel alone at a time like this.
It's just good to get a little camaraderie, and occasionally get that here. It's sometimes it's tough, and just feels a little lonely out here rooting for a, real, like, from the bottom to the top type of, like underdog type of driver like Denny Hamlin. It's just.
All right, we get it, Jeff. Back to my pick.
Through his camera right now. It's just like.
Yeah. I'm not. I think it's great. I think we should go do karate in the garage. We just became best friends.
Yeah, Denny, the leader of the Soccer Mom Brigade and their Camrys.
All
right, but yeah, we get that. Denny
just
Hamlin.
a couple
Hamlin
Camry guys.
Jesus.
Hey, moms that drive Camrys can be hot sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
You can cut that.
Well, I mean, what you got, Finn?
Yeah, so this driver in last year, or the last race, took a car that started 33rd and he got himself to 12th. He also has been secured his playoff spot early and has been able to think about it all year. In fact, I'd wager he's been sandbagging all year to keep everybody off their toes and not ready for the RAF that Ricky Stenhouse is going to pull. All right, he recovered from being down a lap in Darlington to finish 12th. All right, he's had all year. Logano won a championship last year because he won Vegas and just said, fuck this for 3 races. I'm going to focus on Phoenix. Well, that's exactly what Ricky Stenhouse has been doing. All this, all right, we went to Richmond. Guess who invented the High Line at Richmond? Because you know what we do at Richmond, right? We run the fucking High Line. That's what people did. He finished almost damn last, but guess what? He was fast for 3 laps, and he's been showing us signs all year long that 47's got speed. So put it on your fantasy teams right now. Ricky Stenhouse is going to shock the nation and win Kansas and move on to the round of 8.
And that's why I win in fantasy every single week.
I will put him on my fantasy.
You know, making like 3 picks and missing.
It's been the long con, baby. Ricky Spinhouse.
Like that.
The long con. He's had his Kansas car ready. My daughter's screaming.
Go ahead. Gilliland for
I thought he was talking about Kyle Busch. It's like, oh, this is well, Kyle Busch would be a good pick. And he's like, oh yeah, Ricky Stenhouse. Nice curveball.
Take us
You're
out,
right,
Jeff. It's a strike if Angel Hernandez is calling it behind the plate. All right, no matter how much I throw that curveball in the dirt.
Before we roll, I just want to personally thank Nate for coming out and talking shop with us and spending some time and talking racing with us. I really appreciate it. Before we roll, I did want to ask you, where can everybody find you, follow you, and also from what I understand, you did want to talk a little bit about, I believe it was Corey LaJoie and kickball game that was going on, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. So you can find me on social media. I am everywhere. The handle's different on just about everything because I'm stupid and don't understand branding and marketing. But we're on Twitter, on Twitch. From a business standpoint, with Matrix Apparel, my company that I do the sublimated uniforms, we do uniforms for all sports. So if anybody listening has a need and wants to reach out, reference the fact that you saw it on the show and you'll get 10% off your order. Use code FinSucks. Stenhouse sucks. Check out. No, I'm kidding. There's no codes, but yeah, anybody listening that has any type of needs is welcome to reach out. I certainly would take care of anybody that's a supporter of these guys and the show. You can find us on Twitter at Matrix Sports _. Find us on Facebook as well, Matrix Sportswear. The logo on my hat is the Matrix logo, so just look for that logo and you'll know you're in the right place. So one of the really cool things, and one thing that I do want to promote a little bit, just for an awareness, standpoint, especially for the fans who are listening to this show. One of the reasons why I am probably the biggest Corey LaJoie fan, who is not exclusively a Corey LaJoie fan, is beyond his abilities on the track, completely irrespective of that. Yeah, he's a great person. He and his team put on every year a big charitable kickball tournament. They're in Charlotte every year. It's the week of the Roval race leading up to it. And that's happening again this year. And my company and I have the very privileged opportunity to be a part of that from a sponsorship standpoint this year. We're sponsoring the tournament by providing the jerseys for the 4 celebrity teams that will be playing in that tournament. The rosters of these teams are impressive and exciting for race fans. It's a really cool event. Even the 4 team captains are great. I would love to tell you about the rosters, but they have not been announced yet. And Corey's manager, Leanne, will drive to my house and punch my head through a window if I leak the rosters before she gives me the okay. So I'm not going to do that. But it's a really, really cool event. They work with a lot of the same sponsors that you're familiar with from Corey's car every week. Celsius and who's the other presenting sponsor? It's Celsius and Built Bar, among Sheets and some of his other sponsors as well. And what they do is they come together. It's a pretty expensive entry for a lot of these companies that put teams in or whatever, but it's all to raise money for kids, for local children's hospital work and things like that. I need to probably be more educated on which charities they're actually supporting, but I know it's all focused on kids and healthcare and things like that. And they raise many, many, many thousands of dollars. So we're very fortunate to be a part of that event, contribute to that cause in a small way. I'll be at the event. It's the Thursday before Roval. So if you're in the Charlotte area, um, tickets are available to purchase. It is in Kannapolis. It's at the Kannapolis Cannonballers Minor League Stadium, which is a beautiful, gorgeous minor league stadium. I cannot wait to see. I've been to the stadium, but not for a game. Cannot wait to see some action on that field. You can purchase tickets online. You can also get free tickets by donating a pair of athletic sneakers. So if you're able to acquire a new unworn pair of athletic sneakers that can be donated, you can get I believe a pair of tickets for a pair of shoes, but I'd have to double check that. So there are a lot of ways to get tickets. It's going to be a really, really fun event. A lot of cool things going on. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Corey and his team are really going to start pushing the awareness marketing aspect of that here soon. And that's coming up on October the 4th, I think, is that Thursday. It's the Thursday of Roval week, so whatever that date becomes. So yeah, so really excited for that, and always enjoy. Obviously, starting and running a business, first priority is being able to provide for my family, but I always really enjoy when I can use that as a platform to give back to others, and especially the racing community, which has been so phenomenally great to me and my family.
Dupe.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's, you know, it's always cool to see everybody kind of getting together and kind of seeing the racing community bring itself together for a great cause like that as well. I mean, I can only imagine what that team list is really going to look like. So I'm looking forward to see that get released. I mean, that's just going to be a lot of fun. In regards to the rest of the show, I think that's going to be the end of it for us. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Rec. Please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends. Find us on Twitter at intwreckpod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, talk racing with us. And enjoy the race on Sunday, everybody.
Can take what you want from me.